What is going on right now in St. Louis? The the St. Louis Blues have now lost five consecutive games, and they've allowed five or more goals in four consecutive games. If they don't turn things around pretty quickly, they could be at risk of missing the playoffs. How likely is that to happen? We'll talk about that today. But also, Jake Neighbours has been sidelined with a leg injury. He's going to miss several weeks, and the Blues have called up Dalibor Dvorsky from AHL Springfield potentially to fill in that slot. So can Dvorsky provide the spark that the Blues desperately need right now? Where will he play and what impact will he have for the Blues? We're going to talk about all that and more today on Note News. Welcome into Note News. We are a St. Louis Blues podcast, and we go live twice a week. And it's John and Alec back with you as always. If you haven't already, we'd appreciate follows and subscriptions wherever you're watching and listening. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, and then we're on social media at Note News Pod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, where we love to interact with anyone that will follow us over there. So if you haven't done so, give us a follow or a subscription. We appreciate it. It goes a long way. Well, Alec, last time we talked, I believe was the 24th of October. It was between the Utah game and the first Detroit game. So at that point, the Blues had only lost two in a row, and I think we were feeling a little bit better than we probably are right now. But since we last talked, the Blues have lost three more games: 4-6 to Detroit, 3-6 to Pittsburgh, and then 2-5 again to Detroit. And it's been rough. It's been rough. I mean, this first Detroit game, they had a 4-0 lead sort of early into the second period. So I think we all thought, okay, the boys are buzzing. This is something to build on. That was not to be the case, as they then gave up six goals unanswered. I think they looked like the better team for much of that game, but still um, gave it up. So that was really disappointing. They battled back after giving up two early ones against Pittsburgh to tie it up, and then it was kind of mostly Pittsburgh for the rest of that game. And then last night lost to Detroit again. I would say that they looked like they had finally gotten another strong start, but I think beyond that strong start, it didn't look great. And I think we're almost to the point where we can't really, and maybe we've hit that point already where we can't really point to one thing and say this is the biggest issue for this team. I think it's a lot of things. I think some people are now ready to kind of write off the Blues, but Alec, where are you at after these three losses in a row? Again, bringing the streak to five losses in a row. How are you feeling about this team long term right now after this prolonged rough stretch that they're currently in?
I still just can't quit this team. I'm perhaps recklessly optimistic or hopelessly optimistic, but I can't quit the way that they're playing. They're giving up a lot of high danger chances, and if they can clean up some simple mistakes, this team is got a winning record for sure. Um, so I mean, I am still perhaps to a fault, being pretty hopeful that they'll turn it around into the year, but it's clearly going to take some time for them to settle in and for them to get there. So I'm watching with bated breath as these games come and go. And they're playing right now a really hot Detroit Red Wings team and a really hot Pittsburgh Penguins team. So you would say the talent maybe isn't there in the roster, but they're getting a lot of wins right now. So you can only play who's in front of you, and the Blues have had a tough draw. So I'm still pretty hopeful, but um, I think there are a lot of things going wrong that you can realistically point to, and that need to get cleaned up if this team is going to turn it around. But it's still early. I've always said standings don't really matter until December or so, anyways. So we're we're still in that safe period, but yeah.
Yeah, I think we're still in somewhat of a safe period. There is a stat that Elliot Friedman likes to refer to, where if a team is more than 4 points out of a playoff spot by November 1st, I think something like 70% of the time they don't make the playoffs, and so the Blues are pretty close to that right now. I mean, they're last in the Central. They're towards the bottom of the league in a lot of metrics. But I mean, you're right in that they kind of ran into these teams at exactly the wrong moment. I think before the season, we would have looked at this stretch of schedule against Utah, um, against Detroit twice, and against the Penguins in between, and said that's a stretch where they can probably win 3 games. But it just so happens that these are like three of the most surprisingly hot teams to start the year. So that's really tough to have to run into them while they're buzzing like that. So who knows what those three teams will sort of look like for the rest of the season. But it is a shame that while the Blues are still trying to figure things out, they're playing teams that are kind of finding their rhythm, which has been tough. But in terms of like things we can point to, I think Rob hits it on the head in the chat. He said uh, defensive blown assignments and no urgency, too many players watching, that kind of thing. And so just to sort of get to some of those issues that we're seeing, I think part of it is some poor goaltending that we can point to for sure. I think a lot of people are pretty upset and frustrated with the goaltending right now, and I think that's not. I think that's justified. They're by goal saved above expected, two of the like bottom 10 goaltenders in the league right now. So just the goals they're letting in, they're letting in a lot of them, and not all of them are the kind that you can point to where it's like they had no chance, no chance on that, or that's just kind of a lucky bounce for the other team. There are some that they just kind of miss, and too many of those, I would say. So you can point to goaltending as an issue, but I think last night what was really on display for me, and in a lot of the recent games, to be honest, are just as Rob said, like blown assignments defensively. There's and as you pointed out, way too many high danger goals happening, and it's the way those high danger goals are happening. Teams are kind of these opposing forwards are just kind of able to have their way in front of the Blues net. They can get in and establish a position wherever they want, and I think it was Nathan Walker who sort of abandoned his assignment to try and help Logan Mailloux in a puck battle behind the net. I don't hate the like assertiveness there, but when you are the skater that is guarding that guy net front, that's not really a player that you can leave open in that situation. So just a lot of little things like that. It feels like too many mistakes being made, and then on the urgency point, it does like you look at them on the ice, and it looks like they're just like waiting for something to happen, and waiting around way too much. But I mean, those are some of the issues I've seen. Have you noticed anything else in recent games, or seen certain trends continue for this team?
Yeah, it's giving up. I think we're hitting on it pretty well. It's giving up all those high danger chances and blowing assignments, like everyone's been saying. And to me, what that looks like is giving up a bad pass or a turnover, like right in front of the goal or something. That's just a miscue. It's a lot of like self inflicted wounds and not a lot of the other team actually outplaying the Blues right now, which is why I say if they can figure out how to turn it around, I actually have a decent bit of hope for this team that they can play pretty well and be a pretty good hockey team. But they're hurting themselves and losing to themselves more than they're losing to their opponents. And I think that's
Yeah.
a really I mean it is a really sucky product to watch, and something that really just is a struggle for both the players and the fans alike. I mean, losing isn't fun to anybody, but the way that they're losing is truly atrocious. And um, I guess the last thing I'll say is that it feels like something that's correctable. It feels like something that if they could just not be having these miscues right in front of the net and play solid in their own defensive zone, that's something that coaching can turn around. Um, and I actually like their chances to do so, but we have to get there.
Yeah, I like the optimism, and I think you put it well. It seems like the biggest issue here is psychological to me. It's mental, and so when the way you said it was they're just losing to themselves. I think that's accurate. Um, I think there are a lot of manifestations of these like mental issues. Some of it is effort. Some of it is confidence. I think Joel Hofer is going through like a tough stretch of low confidence and sort of assuredness in his ability because we've all seen it. We've seen the ability he has, the talent he has. I don't think personally that that's really in question. I think it's a slump, and a lot of it is he's been rattled by some poor performances, and sometimes it's poor luck, and sometimes it's mistakes that he's made. But he's finding the rhythm, and so that's one example of confidence issues right now. And I mean, I think I was texting you about this watching the game last night. It feels like they're just in their heads too much, and sometimes you just have to play instinctual hockey, and that's not what they're doing often enough right now. Not that it's a bad thing to like want to approach things the right way, but I think Monty has said it before. If you have to think about the play that you're going to make, you've probably already lost it because you need to be reacting to things super quickly in the game of hockey. It's so random and it's so fast that you have to rely on instincts. The time to think and like plan and stuff. That's what practice is for. Once you get game time, you have to trust in the preparation and sort of trust in your hockey instincts at this level. And I don't see a lot of that happening right now. And sometimes it's poor passes, or sometimes it's rushing a play, or things like that. And again, sometimes it's just missing a beat defensively and abandoning your guy. So um, that's the biggest issue for me, as you said, just losing to themselves. And the way I see it is they're in their heads way too much, and they're just taking too much time to think about things. So I mean, hopefully that's something they can break out of. They just look really disjointed right now, and
Yeah.
I don't think it's coaching, like you said. It this is something I've also seen out there right now is that okay, this is multiple seasons in a row where this is happening. Last year they started with Bannister. The year before that they started with Berube. It was some of the same stuff, and so I don't think it's an issue that we can point to and say this is Jim Montgomery's fault. This is a core that's been in place that's like been the through line of these seasons, and maybe they're just a slow start kind of team, but the issue is not the coaching. I think a 3-6-1 start with the expectations that the Blues had could be like a fireable start to a season for a coach, but we all know that's not going to happen. And so something has to happen. Like the players cannot rely on a coaching change this time. They have to dig themselves out of this. So I don't have the answer. Obviously, maybe Montgomery is the one that'll figure it out. But I think more realistically, it's going to have to be on the core and on the leaders to figure this out and get the team thinking the right way, or like I was just saying, not thinking in the right way. So those are some of my thoughts on the struggles currently. I do have a question for you. Can we? I think this is sort of maybe we'll close out this doom and gloom section before we move on to some of what we like, and then ultimately getting onto the Dvorsky call up. That's sort of the main entree for the day. Can we still think of the Blues as this surefire playoff team? I mean, I picked them to finish third in the division. You were a little bit more bullish on them. I think picking them second, if I have that correct, in the division. I think that
Yep.
like a lot of it was a popular pick to have the Blues as a divisional team. So can we sit here today and say that's still looking like something they can do, or sitting at 7 points and last in the Central with a lot of other teams heating up around them. I mean, including Utah, who is one of the teams that we thought they'd be battling with. Can we sit here today and say this is a playoff team? Because I don't think the answer is as clear as it was a month ago.
I I think they're digging themselves a hole, and I think the to me the big word you use there is surefire playoff team. I'd say no. I don't think that you can consider this team a surefire playoff team. How the season has progressed so far, I think that they are still a playoff hopeful, um, but I think that there's reason to think that they can turn it around and be a competitive team again. I think that's my expectation, is that they're going to be competitive. Will they have enough juice to get out of this hole that they're digging for themselves? That I don't know, and that I think remains to be seen. But um the way that this roster is built, I think they're still a good hockey team, can be a great hockey team, and can be playoff hopeful. But can they be a surefire playoff team? I don't think anyone can say that in good faith anymore.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I would be really. I'll say this: I would be surprised if they were not in the race. You know, come February or March after the Olympic break, I would be really surprised if they were not in a position to make a push. Um, but yeah, if we're saying surefire, yeah, I think we're on the same page that that's not an assessment we can really make anymore, which is disappointing for sure. But yeah, I mean, just to cite that stat again of November 1st, it's just a few days away, and they are, I think, I haven't checked the most recent standings. Last I checked, they were 5 points out. Not saying that they have to get up to 4 points out or it's a wash, but like it's really difficult for a lot of teams and a lot of seasons to dig themselves out of holes that they put themselves in this early. And so, um, yeah, I mean, I'm still optimistic, I would say, but again, like you, I don't think we can say surefire anymore.
Hmm.
Okay, why don't we pivot to talk about some on the optimistic note, talk about some good things here. Maybe each pick a couple of things that we've liked that we have seen. I'm gonna go first and take the easy one and just say Jordan Kyrou. I think has been far and away the best player on this team. I mean,
Undoubtedly.
he is the only one that looks ready for like that has looked ready for this team to have a strong start. You know, he I think is doing a great job of leading by example on the ice. An 8 game uh, point streak is what he's currently on, and he's got 4 goals and 4 assists. So he's gotten some consistent scoring. I think his lines tend to be pretty effective right now. I think that the Holloway Shin Kyrou line is starting to look a little bit better again. So that's part of it. But the real thing that I want to point out beyond the point streak is that he looks so good defensively. He I think is pretty soundly not only the best defensive forward on this team, but the best defensive skater on this team. Period. Which how crazy is that to say here? I think we've seen the defense for Kyrou develop over the past couple of years, but to have him starting this strong defensively is insane. So just to throw some stats onto that fire, I did a stat check of other forwards with a minimum of 120 minutes of time on ice at 5-on-5. Kyrou has played 140. And these are on ice stats per 60. So how the team has performed with this player on the ice per 60 minutes. And for Jordan Kyrou, he ranks among all forwards in the league with 120 minutes of time on ice. He ranks 8th in Corsi against per 60, 4th for players with his 140 minutes or more. He ranks 4th in expected goals allowed per 60, first for forwards with 140 minutes of time on ice, and then he ranks 4th in scoring chances allowed per 60, 11th in high danger chances allowed per 60. The man looks good. he looks good defensively, and so to have him scoring at the rate he is, and I'm not saying 4 goals and 8 points through 10 games is like league leading stuff necessarily, but to have him scoring at the rate he is as consistently as he is, and then on top of that to be playing the best defense we're seeing for the Blues right now, I have absolutely loved what we've gotten out of Cairo, and so he alone is like is giving me hope. And so thoughts on Cairo, and then go ahead and take it on to what you've liked.
Kyrie has been awesome, and he's been so consistent in a season of inconsistency. That's been just awesome to watch. Um, I I really love the way that he approaches playing like the game of hockey. Like he just has that 200-foot mindset and understands that defense can beget offense. I do think his quality of shots could be a little bit better. I think he's putting a lot of shots in the chest of goaltenders, and I'd like to see him try and, even if it includes missing the net more, try and pick his spots a little bit. I would be fine with that. But he's doing everything. He's skating well. He's handling the puck terrifically. He's been arguably the best puck handler, I feel like, in the season too. Watching his play in transition and as he enters the zone, I feel like Kyrie is the only player I really trust on zone entries right now.
Yeah.
So
One thing I will
Kyrie's
say is, sorry, just my one thing with him is it looks like he's trying to play make more than usual, and to be honest, and he scored a little bit recently, but like I want to see him shoot it a little bit more. So to that point, I do want to see him taking some more quality shots. I agree.
mhm. Yeah. Um, yeah, but otherwise I think Kyrie has been, as advertised, a terrific skater, one of the best players on the team, and no doubt in my mind that he's a player, worth keeping around. And then in terms of what I have liked seeing so far, yeah, Peter in the chat says he's on an 8-game point streak. That's true. What I have liked so far, I mean, if I want to take the easy answer, I could say Philip Broberg. He's been. I'm surprised you didn't go there, John. Um, but
I mean, I think
Broberg has
just in
been.
order of the highlights, I think Cairo comes first, to be honest. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Broberg's been on a similar heater on defense.
Hmm.
I don't have a ton of analysis there. Just he's been terrific defensively, great offensively, doing all the right things, not blowing his assignments. He looks ready to play this season when so many weren't. But I think what they've been doing well as a team is I think they've been, once they established the offensive zone, they've been doing a better job of not only playing like on the boards or playing scared in the offensive zone. Now they still do some of that. I'm not saying they've completely wiped it out, but I think offensively, except for last night, I think last night was really a disaster class offensively. Um, I think that they've been doing a much better job of creating offensive chances. Like in that Penguins game, I thought they did a really, really good job of creating offensive chances, um, going the other way. And I, um, I think that once they can establish the zone, which usually involves Jordan Kyrou taking it on his stick and skating it in, stopping and starting, and getting a lead pass to someone rushing towards the net or something. Um, that's when they can do their most damage, and that's when they've been doing a better job of like cycling. But like I said, last night they absolutely reverted back to nothing offensively, got no cycles started, and got nothing going offensively. So, bit of a step backwards there. But I think overall, I think offensively this team is figuring it out. Defensively is where they've been really struggling, though.
Yeah, I'd agree. And then just to get back to the point of Philip Broberg being a highlight, because I'd be remiss to pass an opportunity to hype up my guy, number 6. Yeah, I think he's looked great. And while Cairo is kind of statistically the best defensive player that the Blues have right now. If you scroll down the list a little bit, you'll see that Philip Broberg is consistently up there as well. So um, he's in terms of those sort of stats and metrics I mentioned, Broberg's like a little bit behind Kyrou, but he is pretty consistently like the best defensive defenseman in a lot of these metrics. And surprisingly, he and Cam Fowler seem to be up there. So Fowler, who we see as more of an offensive guy, has looked like he's playing some solid defense to start the year. But yeah, Broberg, I will say, you say that Kyrou is kind of the only guy you trust on a zone entry right now. I would personally add Philip Broberg to that list. I think he is such a good skater that he can really, create some forward movement. I think that's something that I agree that they have struggled to do. It seems like they get caught up and they move the puck laterally and then they turn it over. It happens so much, especially in the neutral zone. And so Broberg being such a strong skater and like such a strong protector of the puck when it's on his stick, I would add him to the list of players that I would trust in it. And he scored that wraparound goal. That was a beauty. He tried to do it again, I think last night, but I think it just slid off his stick. He loves to do that, go left to right behind the goal, and try and wrap around. And I think um, he's definitely got the skating to do it, but I wonder how people will start to guard him as he attempts that more and more often. But I will say I agree. He has been a highlight for me as well. And these two players in particular, Kyrou and Broberg, I think have been, for the most part, and it varies game to game, but have for the most part been exceptions to that rule of what you're talking about, some of those offensive and defensive struggles. Um,
Hmm.
So my next one that I want to talk about is I'll just kind of lump these guys together and say Pius Suter, Matthew Joseph, and Jimmy Snuggerud, and I'll lump them together just because they've gotten some ice time together, a decent amount of ice time together. That has been less so the case with Robert Thomas out. Pius Suter has kind of been the one of the top two guys now, and so he has had some different wingers at times. But he's like the main one I want to talk about because I think he has also been one of the better players on this team. He has had a couple of rough games. I think the first Detroit game was a little bit tougher for him. Like kind of gave up a penalty that led to a power play goal for the Red Wings, so that was tough. But I've really liked some of the plays that he has made and has tried to make. The best one that I have seen out of him was actually last night on the second goal, and it was obviously too little, too late. But the way that he took that puck back from Detroit and then set up Jordan Kyrou to score, it was a thing of beauty. Like he just like lifted the other guy's stick and just took it. And I don't know if he had just um, gotten on the ice off of the bench, but he kind of did it as they were trying to exit their defensive zone. And so to just be there and stop it and then just take it away with ease and set up Kyrou. I really liked that. And then, I mean, I think we got to give Matthew Joseph his flowers. I think he's sort of surprised a lot of people with how good he's looked. And then Jimmy Snuggerud, I sort of said this last episode, but once he gets with someone that can think the game as fast as he can, I think you got to watch out. I think he's sort of looking for uh, you know, his Holloway Kyrou type pairing where someone sort of fits in with him really well and matches his style really well. But I think once they figure out who that can be, that'll be really exciting. So I've liked the flashes from those three in particular.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Snuggerud is a player who is, like you said, playing with those instincts right now and really has that comfortability in this offense. And everyone else around him just doesn't have that same level of comfort. And so it's less about the um I think it's coming with Snuggerud finding his, his Robin to his Batman. I think that the team as a whole can be that for him. It's just that right now, like you said, everyone's sort of in their own heads and not really thinking about the game the right way. So I think Snuggerud is a player who's awesome, and I think he's only going to get better. That Calder race is still looking attainable for him. So, you know, I'm I'm super hopeful, and I super like what I've seen from him. And I just hope that, I mean, you love to see that even in a season when everything is going wrong for Snuggerud, that he can still be such a bright spot on this team, and it doesn't like mess with his development or anything. That's the mark of a really, really talented hockey player. So, um, yeah, he's just been such a warm welcome like item on the team that I'm so happy to have and so lucky to watch.
Yeah, agreed. Any other bright spots for you before we move on to the main event of the day that Dalibor Dvorsky has been called up?
I think we can get there now.
Cool. Last thing I'll say is just that I think Dylan Holloway might be starting to turn a corner. He had a stronger game, looked a little bit better, so hopefully he can sort of be maybe be a bright spot of the future on a future episode. So yeah, well, why don't we go ahead and get to the again the main segment for today? Dalibor Dvorsky has been called up to the Blues. So obviously, as I mentioned at the top, the Blues have had a couple of injuries. One to Robert Thomas, and he is, as I understand, expected to be back somewhat soon. I think he's making some progress. He won't play tomorrow night against the Canucks, but hopefully it won't be too long before we see him back on the ice. The worst news, though, is that Jake Neighbours has been placed on the injured reserve. He's got a leg injury and will be reevaluated in 5 weeks. So they're going to be without him for a little while. So that's a tough break for the Blues because he was one of the only ones that was able to put the puck in the net to start the season. I think he's got 6 goals already. So um, hoping he'll be okay and ready to go once he recovers. But with Neighbours on the injured reserve, the Blues have called up Dalibor Dvorsky, one of their top prospects. They've recalled him from the AHL Springfield Thunderbirds. He's played 6 games for them this year, and he's leading them in goals with 3 and shares the points lead with 5. And so, I mean, it's pretty exciting. I mean, like it's exciting that he is kind of the one of the first names up when it's time to call someone up, and so hopefully he can have an impact. But I think maybe what the Blues are doing here is they're looking for a spark, and maybe the jolt of one of their top guys in the system coming in. Maybe that can galvanize something. So thoughts on the Devo call up, generally speaking, before we kind of dive into what it means.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting to get this player back on the ice, just because I'm so high on what Dvorsky is and can be as a player. I think, like you said, if you're looking for someone to develop chemistry with um, Jimmy Snuggerud, who can think as fast as him, I think Dalibor Dvorsky is your guy. Uh, um, he's a super cerebral and just such a smart hockey player. The way
Yeah,
that he plays the game is so efficient and is can be such a spark to his teammates, just like a guy like Jimmy Snuggerud. So I'm super hopeful as to how he's going to help out this struggling Blues team, because I think that they fit right in with what this team needs and how they can go about improving. Um, Dvorsky is a Dvorsky is a um, has such an impact on his line mates that you see,
mm,
and he's pretty solid in the faceoff dot too. So you can really trust him as a center, and I think that they have a really good baseline of play to help with the Thomas injury now that he's out. And even, he was kind of struggling too. So
yeah.
Like if this injury had happened last season, which it kind of did, and the Blues kind of fell apart while Thomas was out, I think it's going to look a lot better than this. So
Yep.
I'm super hopeful for the impact that Dvorsky's going to make because I think he's going to fit right in like a glove.
Yeah, hopefully so. Hopefully so. So, in terms of where he slots in, right? Just looking at some of Jeremy Rutherford's quotes from Jim Montgomery on Dvorsky, Monty said that he'll be playing tomorrow night against Vancouver and that he'll be on the power play. So that's really exciting. Monty also said that his offensive skill set and his shot, especially, can beat a goalie at any level from any distance, and that's something that should help out, should help the lineup. So um, JR also said that Dvorsky should be playing center. I'm not sure if that's sort of what JR is seeing and thinking, which a lot of the time he's right anyway, or if that's something that Army or Monty is quoted as saying. I haven't yet been able to find some like confirmation that Devo will be centering a line, but that's, I mean, I think that's probably the most likely outcome. So why don't we just assume that he will be centering a line? So I think the question becomes, you look at the lineups that the Blues have rolled out most recently. Obviously, as you said, Robert Thomas is out, and it's often very noticeable when he's out. And so the lineup that they have rolled out, the top line is Booch, Suter, Snuggerud, second line of Joseph, Shen, Kairu, Holloway, Sonny, and Tex on the third, and Torpo, Bukestad, and Walker are that fourth line. Um, and obviously, usage changes throughout the game, but that's just the projected lineup from the past couple of games with Thomas out. How do you see this playing out in terms of where Dvorsky slots in? I think it's pretty. Can we agree that he's probably like a middle six guy and not going to be
Hmm.
the top or the fourth line center? Um, so how do you see that playing out, right? Like whose spot does he take? Um, Sunquist and who did I say on the bottom line? Bukestad. Those were the two centers of those bottom lines. Someone I saw wanted Devo to be centering a line with Shen on the wing. Like, so how do you see this playing out in terms of who moves off of the center position, and I think more importantly, who do you see as some good options to be on Devo's wing tomorrow night?
Um, I mean, I think he could fit with just about anybody. Is the exciting thing.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's probably 3C. I think you probably have Suter 1C, Shen 2, and then Devo 3C.
Hmm.
And I could see him playing with a guy like Matthew Joseph, who's had a really hot start to the year. He's
Yep.
playing pretty well, scored a goal last night. Yeah, last night. Um, and I think that a player with speed like that in skating could really help Dvorsky's sort of lack of skating ability.
Hmm.
Um, excuse me. And I would love to see him play with Jimmy Snuggerud. I think that would be the ideal outcome for me. Just the way that they play the game is both such good playmakers. I think that could be like a duo of the future if we can get a Snuggerud, excuse me, sorry, Dvorsky, and then Matthew Joseph, or maybe Dylan Holloway would be another fun permutation of who I would throw on that third line.
Yeah.
Another guy who's been kind of struggling, so maybe earns some time or deserves some time on the third line. Um, but I see him probably being 3C, and maybe it's second line too. And in that case, I would just promote Holloway and Snuggerud to play with him. But I'm I'm definitely curious how they're going to deploy him because I think he just fits so well with what this team needs right now. Um, that it's 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 such an exciting call up.
Yeah, it definitely is. Definitely is. Also, apologies if there's any loud noises on my end. Got some upstairs neighbors moving in. Yeah, I think that I agree. It seems like maybe your top guys that you like are Snuggerud, Holloway, and Texier, or not, sorry, not Texier, Joseph. Um, I think I would agree, especially on. I'll say Holloway is an option that I really like, unless you want to keep that Holloway Shinkairu thing going. And like I said, maybe that line is starting to turn a corner and look more effective again. If you think that's the case, I think you got to roll with that, just given how strong that line has been in the past. But if not, I think Holloway is a good option to play with someone who maybe isn't as good a skater. He can be the dynamic skater on that line. He can be sort of the speedy guy on that line. And we've seen him play on a line with Shen for a long time. It's not like he needs to be playing with a fast center to be effective or anything like that. And so I like that idea. And for similar reasons, I like the Joseph idea as well. Maybe why not give him some time with Joseph while he's been looking pretty decent? I mean, Joseph looks good and has been on the lineup card or whatever in sort of the middle six, top six a lot. But he's still not being deployed a whole lot. He only was on the ice for 16 shifts and like 11 and a half minutes last night. And so if that's the kind of usage you're looking at for a guy like Joseph, then maybe he is sort of a natural fit to play alongside a Devo in terms of deployment. But in terms of style, I really like the skill of Dylan Holloway, and for similar reasons, the skill of Jimmy Snuggerud, um, and I think given how lethal Dalibor Dvorsky's shot is, I think that is what excites me most about playing him on a line with Jimmy Snuggerud, who apparently is a great is a great playmaker. Um, so uh, I think that would be awesome. That would be awesome, and having there have been multiple occasions already this year where Jimmy Snuggerud is trying to get a pass into a tough area, and he makes it look easy, but a lot of the time whoever he's getting it to just isn't expecting it, or can't get a shot off so quick or something. I see Dvorsky as someone that with his hockey IQ, like his uh, the brain that he's got, but also how good his shot is from all over the offensive zone. That again, like you said, could be a really really fun combo to watch. So I really like that idea.
Yeah.
Um, and then let's see. What about the power play? Let's talk about this. We got a couple comments in the chat on Dvorsky on the power play. So what has been the power play? I mean, to be blunt, looks pretty bad. It looks not good. Um, and so to have, and I think this isn't a slight on Dvorsky by any means, but to have him called up for, hopefully his first extended stretch, his first extended look, and already after only a few, like what, 2 games last year or something like that, already, they're saying before he gets here, he will be on the power play. I think that is pretty strong evidence that it's not going great, and they're looking for some solutions. Now, that being said, I think he could be a good solution because, again, he is lethal. So, what I mean, like, what are some of the issues that you've seen on the power play, and how do you think Devo could help this team out on the power play?
Yeah, I think he's going to provide such a nice edge that the Blues have needed. They've been struggling to get their power play has been really, really poor to start the season. And I think a big reason is because they can't get anything going offensively. A big part of that is winning faceoffs, and I think that's where Dvorsky can help about is establishing zone play by very simply winning faceoffs. Braden Shen has been the only player winning faceoffs on this team, even Pia Suter, who had been a decent faceoff winner in his time, has been struggling in that regard too. So to get someone other than Shen winning faceoffs would be huge. And then I also really like how Dvorsky fits in on the as a replacement for Thomas on the far side wing, um, taking over that strong puck handler spot that Snuggerud's been using, and Snuggerud's been doing great at it. But I think that Dvorsky's another one who can make something out of nothing. And when you have the opposing team's penalty kill pestering you in your face, Dvorsky's a guy who maybe doesn't have the ability to outskate them, but has the ability to outthink and outpass them. And I think he has enough to make a quick cut and use that hockey IQ to open up a passing lane, to open up a seam pass and get more one timers or get more plays out of the bumper. So I just like the way he slots in. I think he can just improve the efficiency overall of how this power play unit looks, and how they run, because they haven't had a player like a Snuggerud to complement what Jimmy is doing, and now they do. And now Dvorsky and him, I keep going back to this, just have such complementary skill sets that they can do such great things together, that I think it's going to work out really well for the two of them.
Yeah, I hope it can. Um, and I've got some optimism that it can. And maybe we don't see it right away, but I think given the skill set, there's a lot of potential there. So I think it's pretty clear that there's some restructuring that needs to happen on the power play. I personally don't love. I mean, just like looking at the units on daily face-off, and again, this isn't everything, but just looking at how they're mostly being deployed right now. You've got on the top unit Kyrou, Buchnevich, Holloway, Sonny, and Falk. Personally, I don't love the way that sounds. I don't love the way that looks. I think I like a couple of those guys for sure. And then on the second unit, you've got Snuggerud, Suter, Tex, Fowler, and Shen. And so I to be honest, think what Monty's trying to do with units like this, and again, we've seen some different permutations of these, but I think what he's trying to do, in my opinion, is trying to sort of divide up the talent and not put all your eggs in one basket on that top power play. That's not necessarily a bad strategy, but I think having Justin Falk as the power play quarterback on the top unit, uh, personally, I don't love it. Having Oscar Sundquist on the top unit, personally, I don't love it. And to be honest, I think there are some players on these power play units that need. I mean, I hope it's not harsh to say they just need to be demoted right now. Like they're not performing on the power play, and it sucks to say this, but like one of the names that is front of mind for me is Pavel Buchnevich. I think he just kind of has whiffed one too many times on these like golden opportunities. Like he had a wide open net, and it's not always easy, but he had a wide open net last night, and all he had to do was bump it in. It was on his stick, and it just bounced over. And it would be one thing if that only happened like a couple of times. I feel like this is a bit of a trend early season for Booch, and he's not the only one. Like I'm not saying he's the reason why the power play is not effective, but I think there's got to be some shuffling up. And I'm not saying you take him off of the power play entirely, but the top unit has consistently struggled, and so maybe you just bring him down. So in terms of what Dvorsky can bring, um, I mean, the biggest thing, as Monty said, it's just that shot, man. It can beat any goalie, um, and not 100% of the time, of course, but like I I would say that a shot as good as his can beat any goalie at times. And so for a team that is currently ranking on the power play, looking at their shots for per 60 on the power play, care to guess where they rank in the league in shots for and Corsi for? It's the same spot
Um, on just the power play,
on just the power play.
30th.
31st. Yeah, you were right on the money. They're bad. They just, I mean, like it happens feels like it happens every night. It's like power play 0 for 1 or 0 for 2. It's just like it's so consistently, uh, you know, unable to not only like score but to set up an opportunity. I feel like it's happened way too often, and so um, I think what Devo can bring here is that shot, man. I mean, again, they're gonna have um, to get set up and make a play to get the puck to him to shoot. But hopefully he'll be ready to take some more chances because it feels like they're always, again, this gets back to the overthinking thing. It feels like they're trying to find the perfect opportunity, and they're so afraid of wasting the perfect opportunity that they just can't get anything put together. They can't get anything fired towards the net, and so um, hopefully Dvorsky can shake things up in a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on Dvorsky, or how we might see him deployed in the coming games? Maybe how long we think he'll stick around. Any thoughts on that?
This might be a bit of a bold prediction, but I kind of think that Dvorsky is going to take this spot and run with it. I think right
Okay.
now there's a lot of spots up for grabs with just how players are playing, and we could see some healthy scratches here. And I think Dvorsky is playing hot right now in the AHL. I think he's ready for NHL action. And I think, like Jimmy Snuggerud, he's hungry and he's ready to take over. So maybe a bit of a in-season bold prediction here, but I think Dvorsky stays up for, I don't know, 20 games maybe, like until Robert Thomas comes back, but gets a sizable chunk of playing time because he just looks better than the vets playing right now. And I think that the team kind of needs a kick in the rear, and I think Dvorsky can be the guy to provide that.
Yeah. Hopefully so. Yeah, I like the optimism around Dvorsky for sure. I think again he sticks around at least until Robert Thomas is back. Um, my question is, say Robert Thomas comes back and Devo looks solid. Do you send him back down to the AHL? Because I think it's pretty clear he has figured out that level. To me, like just the way he looked last year and the way he started the year this year, he kind of picked up right where he left off. It seems to me like he has kind of figured out how to be good in the AHL. So if and when both of these guys come back and if Dvorsky looks good, do you do you send him down or do you keep him around and find some other way to make it work?
I think it'll depend on how the team is playing by that point,
Yeah.
because I kind of think that they probably would send him down unless like everyone is still struggling, and in that case, it might be a Toropchenko or something who has to clear waivers, like Alex Texier just got sent down or is on waivers. Um, so I kind of think that, um, yeah, I kind of think that it depends on how the team is playing at that point.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I would personally be. I'm just saying, like, if it's a lot of ifs, but if they look okay, if he looks good, and maybe there's some other players struggling. I don't know that I would want to send him back down because I mean they need offense. Well, I guess offense has actually looked decent. I mean they're putting up like a lot of goals sometimes. It's just they need consistency, and if he's providing it, why not see how long it'll work. Um,
Hmm.
in terms of what we got coming up, the Blues are going to play against the Vancouver Canucks tomorrow night at home. Hopefully, they will win their second home game of the season um, out of six. I mean, they've lost 5 of 6 so far at home. So hopefully they can beat the team that they beat so soundly just a couple of weeks ago. So fingers crossed on that one. And then they'll play in Columbus on Saturday. And again, Columbus. I haven't really kept track of Columbus so far, but as I understand, they don't look great so far. So, I mean, in theory, two winnable games here. So, I mean, we've said that before though, so we'll see what happens, and we'll be back here to break it down after those couple of games. And then I think they've probably got a bit of a tougher week in the following week. So we'll talk about that once we get a little bit closer to it. But yeah, hoping the Blues can start to turn a corner here, obviously, and hoping Dvorsky looks like he's ready to help them do that. So exciting stuff in terms of Dvorsky, less exciting stuff in terms of the 5-game losing streak. But go check out Alex's article on Bleed and Blue. There's a lot of stuff associated with this team that should give you reason for optimism. So if you're a Blues fan who's feeling downtrodden and sad, go check out Alex's article on Bleed and Blue. Maybe you can find some hope from that. But yeah, so we will be back here to talk about these next couple of games, and hope that everyone will join us then. So thanks for tuning in this time. If you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's the best way to help us out. It truly is. And then like this video, follow, rate, review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Those ratings and reviews go a long way. They help put the pod in front of new eyes. And then follow us on socials. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Note News Pod. Post a lot of other great stuff over there and love to interact with everyone on all those platforms. Thank you. We will see you next time, and let's go Blues.
Let's go Blues.